snow down here today. I've not quite put the camera in the right spot, but that's okay. You can still see me, and hopefully still hear me. So it's obviously the start of another working week, buttermint in mouth, and I was lying in bed last night thinking, well, what do we talk about today? What's the sort of latest things that I want to talk about? Well, I had a little look just to see essentially what new releases there are for 2026, and there's a few coming that haven't actually been released yet, so we're going to talk about that on next week's one. But I thought today, because we're in February, I wanted to have a little look at brands that I think need a good year this year for multiple different reasons. I think there's a lot of brands that are obviously just throwing out fragrances, but I feel like there's some in particular for many different reasons that need a big year, and we're just going to go through them. I sort of had 5 on my mind, but I think I'm going to end up naming a lot more than that. So what we'll do, we'll go straight into it. I'll give my reasons why, and we'll start with the really easy one. For me, the first brand that needs a good year this year is Versace. So at the end of last year, there was some news that Prada's bought Versace, and to be honest with you, if I'm looking at it, I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of change this year with Versace. I don't think Prada are going to go flat out this year and go, right, let's change everything, let's change the whole rule book. I still expect to see the traditional Versace fragrances that you still love and expect, and I don't think they'll get rid of those ones anyway, whether that's Dylan Blue or anything along those lines. I think they will stay because they are a big part of Versace. So in my opinion this year, I think the only thing they could do, and I think they should do, is maybe release a fragrance that is a flanker of a very popular line that they've got. So Versace, I believe it's Versace Pour Homme, isn't it, that's a very popular fragrance. I think if they could do some sort of soapy flanker of that, it's a summery type fragrance anyway, that gives you a vibe of the Prada DNA, I think that'd be a really good thing, because I want to know what Prada are going to do over the next few years with Versace. Is it just literally, we want control of Versace because it's such a big brand, or do they think we can maybe change these fragrances a bit and add our own Prada DNA? But I suppose if you do that, you don't want to take away what Prada is as a brand either. So it'd be interesting. Will they kind of merge the brands together in some way, or because they're both such familiar names, will they just keep them? And I think for me, I'd just like to see maybe a little flanker this year, just a little bit of a dipping their toes in the water essentially. I think it'd be interesting to see what Prada can come up with. So that's the first brand. So really, it's not because they're struggling, they obviously were struggling, but hopefully Versace will be alright now. So the next one is a brand that I do think is struggling, and I haven't got anything to go on to say it is, other than the fact, I don't know, it just feels like they've lost something. And the next one is Mugler. Now, Mugler is, I love Mugler. I really do love Mugler fragrances, but particularly the old ones, so like the original Amen for me. I remember my dad having it when I was younger, spraying it in his room, just loving it, because it's that chocolate smell. And when you're a kid, that smell of chocolate is just so Moorish, isn't it? And actually, when you look at clone websites, not a lot of brands are really cloning Amen anymore. You've got Cuban Prestige Classic, that they copy a lot of fragrances, but I don't feel like there's you go on the Essential or Notes of Aromas, they don't really look at Amen as one to massively clone. But for me, the biggest disappointment with Mugler is what's been discontinued over the years. So in those similar sort of rubber bottles, they've discontinued ones like Pure Havana, Pure Malt. There was a Pure Tonka, Pure Coffee. There was a real line of really, really nice popular notes that they've essentially just discontinued. They don't want them anymore. And they've kind of gone more into this line called Alien. And I've had Alien Man, and I think they did one that had Osmanthus, Alien Man Fusion, and it got terrible reviews. I never tried it. Alien Man was very nice. It is very nice. But and it certainly is a more modern take, but I don't think they needed to do that. Again, I look at Aramis, who are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to modernise fragrances, do their own range of blue ones, like Intuition, blue fragrance line, but they're good at the retro, old school fragrances. That's what the brand has that recognition for. And I think Mugler had that. You had other ones like Cryptomint that was really popular. I believe they had one called Shot, and I think it was endorsed by Oscar Pistorius, who was obviously a Paralympian. But if anyone remembers, obviously the criminal case that was against him, they changed the name of that, and I think they changed it to just be called like Ultimate or something. And obviously they cut all ties with him. So yeah, it's just a shame. I think they had a nice orange one as well, which I never got around to smelling. And I just wish Mugler would go back to bringing that line out, because particularly when you look at modern fragrances now, I look at one like Pure Havana and Pure Malt, boozy stuff, they'd still fly off the shelf. They would still fly off the shelf, if anything, even more than they did before. So I think Mugler needs a good year. They need to, for me personally, I'd like them just to bring back their classics. If not, I'd like to go back more into their sort of sweeter line of fragrances. I think it would add a lot more personally, but you know, I say this as a person who's buying fragrances, not as a person who's looking at the data. And I'm sure they've got data to support the fact that, you know, Alien Man and these other fragrances are appealing to a market that they want to. And that Amen is still available, so I must reiterate that as well. The next one, again, it's a brand that seems to be discontinuing fragrances. And I don't particularly watch fragrance videos on YouTube anymore. I've kind of, if you watch a lot of those YouTubers who make these videos, it feels like they repeat themselves a little bit like I do, to be honest. And you end up just hearing the same fragrances are great all the time. And you never know how many they've been sent and given to speak highly of, let's say. But Azzaro. Now, Azzaro has had some absolutely world-class fragrances. Now, I'm massively into my Lush fragrances, as you know, if you've seen my videos. For them, though, Azzaro was probably number one. You know, Azzaro Pour Homme Intense was what I bought my brother years ago for his birthday, and it ended up being one of his favourite fragrances, one of the best boozy fragrances you could buy. For me, as good as Bentley for Men Intense. You can get it for around £25–30 at the time. It went up, and then obviously now it's discontinued, very hard to find. And it's just a modernised take on the original Azzaro Pour Homme. But they've had some hype fragrances over the years. You've had Ginger Lover, that was a popular fragrance. Wild Mint was one I had. Loved it. It was a bit of a mentholy smell. A bit like this buttermint that stuck to my teeth. But like a toothpastey smell, but it's very refreshing. Really, really nice. They had like a Naughty Leather or Vibrant Leather. Naughty Leather it was called. They had a spicy one as well. It was just a lovely line. It was a really, really lovely line, and in my opinion, very hard to dislike. Party date night. They also did one called Azzaro Visit, where the bottle was bland to say the least, and it was a blue juice, but it didn't smell like a blue fragrance at all. It was a nice woody, slightly warm, spicy fragrance, top scent. But you just don't see them around anymore, and again, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because, you know, these brands are just, you know, they're not advertising right, or they're just not around in the same way now. I don't go into shops and see Azzaro fragrances, and they're really, really good fragrances, and they should be, in my opinion, out there a little bit more. They do the Chrome line, of course, as well. Nice aquatic type line, but with a little bit more depth about them, a little bit more quality than just your cheap aquatic type scents. So yeah, I think Azzaro need a big year. Again, I don't know if that's bringing things back or if it's more a case of doing something new, because they've released a lot of top fragrances over the years, and I think they can do that again. So yeah, they're probably my main three, but I think a couple of others I just wanted to touch on. First one is actually Bentley. I love Bentley fragrances. I think Bentley fragrances are real top quality, you know, high-end type scent, and it's not so much that Bentley need to do anything different this year. Now, Bentley are owned a little bit by Lalique, so you know, Lalique fragrances are quite timeless, gentlemanly, and I think Bentley goes into that mould as well. But you know, I feel like we've had Bentley for Men Intense, we've had Bentley for Men Absolute. They did the Beyond Collection line, I think it was called. didn't really kick off. It was very expensive, but it wasn't, for me, I did smell a few, they weren't real showpiece scents. Not to justify that extra price. They did a Bentley Silver Lake, which I think was a sort of more citrusy base scent. There's a Bentley Black, I believe, as well. They've never had quite the same hype as the Bentley for Men, just the original Bentley for Men and Bentley for Men Intense, Bentley for Men Absolute. They never quite reached that same level. I just would like something new again this year. Maybe something like a Bentley for Men Intense Extreme, or just, I don't know. There's something more that I think can happen this year with Bentley. They could just release maybe one fragrance just to sort of get them back out into the sort of, in the focus again of everyone. I love Bentley for Men Intense, and it's never going to get boring for me, so that's fine. But I just see if they could just come up with something new again this year, I would buy it. You see, I would be straight on it. If there's a new Bentley for Men boozy type scent, I'd be on it. So what will be my next one? Well, there's a couple of brands that I've never bought from, and maybe that's more on me than anything, but I'd like a reason to buy some of them, and I just want to just name these. Again, this is not saying they need to do anything in particular, but Issey Miyake's one I want to buy this year. Never had an Issey Miyake fragrance. I haven't seen a lot of hype around any of their recent releases. I've had John Paul Gaultier, I've certainly smelled a lot of John Paul Gaultier. I've never really owned them, I've never really looked to buy them. And that's another brand I'd like to look at a bit this year. Bulgari's another one. You know, Man in Black feels like their big scent, and that Aqualine's very good. I'd like to see something again from them this year. Something that makes me want to buy them. And I'll go back to Aramis. I love Aramis. The original Aramis. Some of the old ones. But I realise they've got rid of some of their scents as well. I don't think you can really get Aramis 900 anymore, which was a very old school floral type scent, and it was very like naturalistic floral. It smelled like you're in a garden. It did have that slight urine smell, let's say, but when I first had it I didn't like it. I think now I'd have more of an appreciation of it. They also had this nice special blend, which was a spicy fragrance. The spices in that were incredible, absolutely top quality. So I'd like to see Aramis bring some of those back, because I think I think they're owned by it'll come to me in a minute, but yeah, I'd just like to see them maybe bring some of those old Estee Lauder, that's who they're owned by. I would like them to maybe bring some of those fragrances back, because you could do like a classic collection. I believe it was 1966 when the original Aramis came out, 60 years ago. Do a 60-year anniversary special. You'd get a few people, you know, who like Aramis maybe to go and buy them again. And let's do one more, because I'm nearly there. The journey's been much better today. We've had so much flooding that I left at 5:45 today. So I'm way too early now, but I'd rather be too early than late. So the last brand that I'm going to mention, I think we need to go more expensive here. I'm going to go with one of the niche brands. I'm actually going to go Nasomarto. Now Nasomarto is a brand I absolutely love. I love their little bottle designs. They're like a huge lid. They're 30ml extract. They do my favourite boozy fragrance, Nasomarto Bronda. The whiskey note in that is incredible. I'd like them to release another sort of, I'd like them to release a boozy line. I think that would be an absolutely amazing thing. They do, probably one of their most well-known scents is Black Afghano. I don't mind that one, but their boozy scents for me are some of the best. Or that one definitely. They need to promote them more. They need to do a boozy line for me. There's a lot of top notes, you know, rum, whiskey. I love Tom Ford Lost Cherry, like that liqueur smell. They could do a nice sort of almondy one like that. I love Nude Flauran that they also do. I'd just like to see them, maybe this is just me having a bit of an emotional connection because I really like the scents. I'd like to see them get pushed a bit more in the fragrance industry, because I think they're brilliant. Maybe that's just me, but I'd like to see some people maybe try these ones a little bit more, and maybe they just need to promote themselves a bit better, because I think they've got some top fragrances in their line. So that's probably just my own bias taking over, but yeah, great fragrances, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out. As I said, next week I've got a bit of a video plan. I'm going to look at the current releases so far that have come this year, but also what's to come this year, because I found an article that's told us about some releases that will be coming over the next few months, and hopefully we can talk about those in more detail and you'll be there to join me. But yes, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you later.